And yeah, we got to think about that. So we'll do a tiered fingerprinting of the mesh, and just to basically make sure that we're doing it sequentially, and if something is not found, maybe we treat it as an error, or maybe it's just maybe report the error and go to the next fingerprinting. So yeah, that's yet to be decided. But yeah, that's the idea. I mean, the reason I want to use pipeline, even though I'm mentioning sequential, is because some things could happen in parallel, like discovering the image and maybe the control plane at the same time could happen. So they would run in parallel and fill out the models, the mesh info object. And the mesh info object is going to be queryable at any point. We're going to protect it with a read-write mutex. So as the fingerprinters are adding more information to the mesh info object, anyone can query for it. The other piece in the design is going to be some kind of eventing, a broadcast. So every time new information is added, the mesh info object should be broadcast, and we can have whoever the subscribers are, maybe the Meshery adapter, maybe Meshery control plane, whatever we need.
Yeah. Another example of parallel processing might be, once you've identified that there's an Istio control plane, for example, that if you want to go over and analyze each of Istio's individual custom resources, that you might be able to do that in parallel.
Right. That's a good point.
Eventing back to a Meshery adapter. Today, today I don't know that the adapter, each of the adapters are able to event back to the Meshery server, and they each have their own channel. But the adapters themselves, I don't know that they have a channel or a way of being evented to.
Okay.
I mean, and maybe that's thinking of it I mean, when you connect, they are connected on an open port. They are listening on an open port. The way that's mostly used is that Meshery server is invoking an operation, like it's telling, but but not. Anyway, while it's listening on a port, I don't know that. I don't know that it's listening for an event.
Okay.
Again, like I'm kind of tormented on this particular thought because to date, the place for service mesh specific knowledge has been inside of an adapter, and so flowing information about a mesh through the adapter. The thing is flowing information about a specific mesh through its relevant adapter today makes some sense, so that logic can be, we can reason over that information. The reality is that there are mesh specific that really like. It's funny that there are like 3 adapters. We have 6 adapters, I think. 3 of which are more or less based on the same thing, because all 3 of those service meshes are Istio, or implementations of Istio. And so it's really just the configuration analysis portion that we have inside of the Istio adapter that is that has service mesh specific knowledge that we would want to look at such an event and say, wait a second, that something's wrong, right? That you have a dangling virtual service or whatever. Because the lifecycle management operations about installing and uninstalling Istio, while they're Istio specific inside the adapter, I don't know that those lifecycle management operations much care about info that MeshSync is going to get.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Maybe that was just thought. So
Yeah. No. I'm yeah. No. I'm trying to do the same thing. Trying to think out loud through this. Like the reason that this is painful for me is because I think in my gut, I've said it a few times. Of like, it feels like there's a V2 architecture coming for adapters, in which they don't look like they look like today, and you know, and that kind of an effort is painful because it doesn't. It's a better architecture, or whatever that V2 is potentially. It's not really something I want to. I'm trying to actively chase, but the reason that it's painful is because none of the users give a rip, because it like doesn't help them any more than they're being helped today. Tinkai, there might be two other things that we can talk about on today's call potentially. One is that I went ahead and prodded a few people to start the visual topology, understanding that we're getting some traction with MeshSync, that we'll be able to pump some info through the system. And after a couple of days, one of the contributors has just sent me a recording late last night of kind of an early prototype, not consuming any actual info, but just. And so I'm going to share that with you guys now. The second topic is to potentially show Tinkai a bit of the code that does fingerprinting for Istio, and to potentially, so that he might potentially consider something similar for Kuma.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. All right. So let me share my whole screen. Yes, I have a headache from lack of sleep from the from last night's.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. How'd your talk go?
Oh, we haven't recorded it yet. I'm still building out the demo. So we have the slides. I'm building out the demo, putting it on GitHub, and then we got to record the talk. So I wanted to ask, what software do you use to record your talks?
You know, we went on to we went on to the system that they had for us and did it there. Okay. But that said, if I was doing it by myself, I would use, and this might be something that we'll have a subsequent conversation on. So I'm on a Mac, but it does not that it's. I would use this open source software. It's called the abbreviation is called OBS, Open Broadcast Studio.
Okay.
And it's, slightly, it's an open source piece of software, so the UX is not the best, but it is fairly powerful, and it's kind of neat because it'll let you set up, like, it makes it look professional where, and actually, honestly, you might want to check in with it if you do this. Like, it's neat because it'll let you take your screen, put your presentation in this section, and then have your face in this section, and you can paint the background with something else. Like, it's so nice.
So this is post editing.
Well, or while you're you can set it up and then get it configured how you'd like for it to be recorded and kind of look. And then when you're ready to give your talk, you just give it like you normally would. But the way that the video, it draws in video from your webcam, it draws in video from what you're sharing, and it puts them together for you.
Oh, so you share a screen, like a pane or something.
Right. Yeah. Okay. You get the choice of like sharing, a window or a.
Got it. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'll send it out to Akash as well.
Okay.
Oh, so it's funny. Someone from Akash's team, like who wasn't in any of her calls, just uh, posted a link to Mesh.io on our platform. And
Yeah.
I was wondering, maybe I should email her because she is a Golang buff and she wants to learn about service meshes.
Good.
Maybe she can join our community. So
Nice.
I'll try to do that because I'm pretty sure she'll be interested.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. Yeah, dude, absolutely. Dude, that's I love it, man. You just keep doing good things and more come. So this is it's kind of a hard screenshot to see because there's a little bit of YouTube text overlaying. But what we had here was, do you see the blue background and
Yeah.
pink and purple? Okay, so that's just we just took an image, a background image that was provided by the DockerCon. And then using the software, we said the OBS, we loaded up the background image, and then we said, okay, we want 2 video sources, one from my webcam, one from, and actually not from Kanishka, we just put a picture. So it's a picture, video source, and then a different screen or a different type of video source, which was just my screen being shared. I was doing it full screen while I was talking here, but yeah, OBS was bringing it together to look just like this. So
that's really cool. Yeah, this is pretty good. I'm gonna do that.
I'll say, okay. There's there's some nice little write up like cheat sheet that might be helpful.
Okay, yeah, if you can send that to me, I'll link to it. That'll be good too.
Nice.
Sorry, I digressed on.
Yeah, no, this is good. So, okay, well, so by the way, the service mesh performance specification site is hideous at the moment, but but a new site is coming together, and that's actually I included a little bit about it in last night's talk, and I'll do it again in a much bigger way in the upcoming talk. The thing I wanted to share with you guys is there's a gentleman, Anirudh, who is, well, who's, I don't know if you can see this, but he's been working on this. So he's taken.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And that was really quick what just happened. So I'll kind of, let me slow it down. So it's, so it's ugly, the canvas, but hey, it's integrated into Meshery itself. So this is, I get really excited. And then, so he's hovering, he's having some interaction. He clicks on the node and a context menu pops up. And right now, he's just prototyping, but one of the goals that I'd asked him to do is to like, let people invoke a performance test right from here.
So when it says node, that's a Kubernetes node, a VM?
Yeah, no, he just like, it's all, it's
made up.
Yeah, it's just fake data. Yeah, but it should probably be a service is probably the.
Oh, see.
And so like this service would have an endpoint and you might want to generate load against that. So let me see if I think this will be intuitive. So then right here, what he's got happening is like, there's a modal right in context of the visual thing you're seeing. Okay. And actually, as soon as like Kush and Kanishka have been working on performance test profiles, meaning you don't have to type it all in all the time. You just type it all in once. You save it as a name, and instead of showing the form, likely we would just show, a list of profile names. So you can say, oh yeah, I want to run the soak test 3. And then you start to see all the traffic go across the node. Like there is no traffic going across the. But point of showing this to you guys is this isn't possible, and we wouldn't really start unless MeshSync is, because MeshSync is becoming a thing. It's possible to start on this. Cool. And then. So the other topic that we could touch on is Tinkai, do you think it would be time well spent to take a look at what Nitish has done on discovering Istio?
Yeah, I would love to.
And Nitish, do you want to share, or I can bring up something?
If you can bring it up, I don't think I have it on this laptop.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. So, damn it. Okay. All right. And so hopefully this is not too small. But Tinkai, so I'll give you the very high level tour, and then Nitish will interrupt me at some point.
Mm-hmm.
There's a main.go, kick off the main program. Part of what the design for MeshSync is that hopefully we're designing it in such a way that it will be able to run as deployed inside of a cluster, or just running on your local, or outside of the cluster. Outside the cluster, it's going to need a kube config to be able to speak to Kubernetes. Inside the cluster, it's still going to need, a kube config, but it'll retrieve that, internally. The code itself, collectively, you can refer to it as an implementation of a Kubernetes controller. So it's a custom controller. And then the dish from here, this is the main construct of the program, right? Is the fact that it's, and so the
start of MeshSync.
Trying to think of anything interesting here. What is what is this for?
The quit channel?
Yeah.
So this is your runner function. The quit channel is if someone hits Control C. Oh. We want to do a graceful shutdown.
Okay.
So it basically gracefully shuts down Go routines. Blocks. It'll make sure that things are cleaned out if the resources is allocated.
Okay.
Or there were some upstream connections that you want to terminate. So that's why this is one of the models. The other one is passing in a context, and you can just cancel the context. So these signatures might change a little bit. Whoever is working off of this will, yeah, it might be a little painful, but everything's gonna change and move around. So I don't know if we want to start another mesh or if we want to distribute work on Istio fingerprinters and identify the different fingerprinters and start working those things. I don't know what's better.
I'll bite my tongue. I mean, I think part of what you're saying is like, hey, if Tinkai were to get started on a different mesh, it might become frustrating over time because it'll be refactored a few times as MeshSync evolves.
Yep.
As opposed to the sort of going a little bit deeper on the existing area of focus, which is Istio. And
once we get the design right, then it'll be easy to do it for other meshes.
And so do you want to talk him through Istio?
Yeah, so what we want to do is so we're creating a synchronizer client for Istio. If we go to sync.go, so this is our interface that we want to implement for each of our meshes. You have MeshSync, which has the synchronizer and fingerprinter interfaces. So when you go into the Istio directory, so if you go to istio.go, so istio.go is an implementation of that interface. So if you scroll down, you'll see the synchronize function and the fingerprint function. So that satisfies the interfaces. The idea is in the synchronize function is where you do all the legwork. So as soon as synchronize is called, it kicks off a Go routine, which is start discovery. And in here, you're just handling events coming in. So these events could be, the event coming in could be like a broadcast or something. It could be done over here, or however you want to handle the events. Uh, but in the start discovery method is where the first step is going to be uh, discovering the mesh. So get Istio versions is essentially similar to Istio CTL version, and it's doing it on a periodic basis. We created the ticker sync period, and every time it ticks, it's gonna continue probing the mesh, and once, like, when it figures out that the mesh is discovered, it's going to start fingerprinting the mesh, or in this case finget printing the mesh. I think I don't know if I've pushed the fix. I made the fix somewhere, maybe it's in my branch. um, but yeah, the fingerprinting is essentially a pipeline like we were discussing earlier. This could be fingerprinting in parallel, like Lee said. It could be identifying uh, what custom resources are available, identifying the workloads that might be, or services that might be part of this current mesh and belong to, or are owned by that mesh. So there could be a lot of things that we're going to collect, but when you see that event channel, uh, let me see, where's the, okay, yeah, there's the model events. Could you show the model events? So this is the structure of events, and again, it's an interface. You have a details function which gives you our abstract struct or abstract object that represents a mesh in MeshSync. So this is mesh agnostic. So if you want to jump into mesh info.go. So it's pretty mesh agnostic. You'll right now we just have the version string. All meshes should have a version string. Uh, we'll start identifying what else is common to our meshes. What kind of info do we want to store in this struct? And then there's an opaque field which could hold mesh specific information. So it's up to the consumer of this object. So I think there'll be a type field too that I'm missing. So above the version, we can say mesh type or something, and which could be an enum, where 0 is Istio, 1 is Kuma, blah blah blah, whatever we need to. And based on the type, you'll have your uh, switch case where it knows how to interpret the opaque object. So yeah, that's the idea. You just have your setter functions, and you're gonna have getter functions. I haven't said the getter functions, but
Let me tell me if this is reasonable. With inside of the service mesh performance specification, there's a few protos, one of which is a list of service, basically the enum that you were talking about.
mm-hmm.
It'd be nice to be able to import this package and use this if possible.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
Cool.
That would be nice.
Nice. That'd be awesome because anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely do this.
Um, Tinkai, is any of that coming together in
Yeah. Um, yeah. Maybe I was just curious and not very specific to this mastery operator. When we like deploy like running when we were running this mastery operator, how like just curious how do you know that these service meshes will send the information to mastery operator? Like we are catching the event here. Like how do you guarantee they will send the event to where you want?
So that get Istio versions is basically probing the Istio control plane, and the control plane in the right namespace. So one instance of Istio could be running in Istio system one. So it's going to probe the control plane in Istio system one, and then you have Istio system two. So it's going to probe Istio system two. So it's basically that discovery is a poll-based model rather than an eventing model. So periodically, it's just asking the control plane. Basically, it's it's checking that the control plane is responding. So it's more like a health check after the first discovery, or if something changed, maybe that information will be updated too. And there's going to be a lot of. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of things that I missed out in here. Uh, so
Okay.
so yeah, I mean, if you can dissect this code and think of reasons why it's not gonna work, or maybe some modifications, please do so. There's nothing set in stone, so uh, I'm really open to being convinced otherwise, and we can start modifying this code.
Okay, cool. Um,
So part of that is that there will be certain things that MeshSync will have to first discover, and then I think to the extent that we can, once we've discovered them, that we would be able to subscribe for updates on that object. So it'll be kind of a combo of polling and listening.
Mm-hmm.
The actual command that we use to so in this case, like as we're discovering the version of Istio, we are importing in Istio's Go client.
Mm-hmm.
It has a function to figure out where the control plane, if there's a control plane there, kind of where it is, and then if so, what the version number is.
Yep.
Okay, and that's that's okay. That's not here.
The start discovery.
Oh, okay.
yeah. Maybe I have another question. So when I just reading through the code here, like if I were to write this code, like I was wondering like how did you know that how did you design such functions? Like how do you know, for example, discovery has signature context and sync period, and what's the what's the context here? Like for
Uh,
example, or fingerprinting, what's the event like? How do you design this function? Like, no, we have these two parameters, and what's the output of this function?
so there is no real spec. These are all made up objects. Anything that I could think of. The event object, I wanted to create an object which could carry an error message if an error occurred, or If not, then it could carry the mesh sync object, the info object, the details about the mesh. So, so these events can happen at any point in the pipeline, and what we want there, and maybe it's missing in here, but what we want there is it'll at least send, even if an error occurs, it's going to send the event object that's populated maybe in step 1 and step 2 of the pipeline, and step 3 is where you hit an error. So you want to quickly, at any of the pipelines, you don't want to be blocked till everything runs to send an update about the event or about the mesh object. You want to do this constantly in every pipeline, every step, every stage of the pipeline.
Okay. Just following up on here, like, could you tell me, like, what's the context here? Like, what is actually the context?
There's
Context.
there's there's nothing in the context. It's again, it's just used for the cancel function. And if you go, so I haven't added the context cancel, but if you were in the controller.go, so when a quit happens, where's our quit? We pass the quit to synchronize. So if you go to synchronize, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna change these signatures a bit. So when a quit happens, it's going to do a context cancel on all instances of the synchronizers, and all of them will do like a graceful shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
And need to,
Okay.
so that's why I said, like, there's the context was added retroactively, so some of the signatures will need to change.
Okay.
And I can change this whenever I get to this next.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, there's nothing in the context. There's no data I'm storing. It's just used for the cancel context, the cancellation method.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Of a potential item that Tinkai might be able to add is that taking a look at for a specific Istio custom resource, or is that inappropriate?
The we need to identify, like, something we were talking about the other day was uh, what are the requirements in terms of fingerprinting, like what kind of data do we want to collect? Because if you were to say identify the custom resources, it's possible that there's no custom resource uh, created in the cluster. It's just the CRDs are deployed, but there's no workloads running. So that's a possibility. It should not be an error case. If we do find objects, we're gonna relay that information back to through that events object. So whenever it finds something, uh, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, no. Yeah, that question might be in advance of where we were, or that suggestion might be in advance of our readiness for a particular. Also, I guess after I asked that or suggested that, thinking about the potential use of pipeline.
right. Yeah, there's a lot of I can anticipate a lot of re-architecture and redesign in this case. So
I wonder if something as small as maybe pulling this package so that there's an enum that we can use for identifying. I don't know. I'm trying to get Tinkai's fingers wet. where was that, by the way, where we were talking about? Yeah,
The
here.
event object, yeah, info object, yeah.
Tinkai, does this make sense? What we're talking about accomplishing here?
Yeah. Yeah. The metric type enum will be something from the mastery specification, like the one we just saw. Yeah, here.
Right. Hey, yep, that's right. Question, as we go to add additional, what do you call it, service meshes later, if you ever retroactively go back in time and switch out the number for one of these, I'm assuming that has a massive, that has breaking effects for anyone consuming the proto. Like, is that right? When you're in the code, when you're referring to, when you want to refer to linkerd, if you've imported this package, is the code itself going to be matching off of the number 4, or will it always be matching off of the text itself?
I Are you asking me?
Or Nitish, or I don't. Yeah, probably Nitish.
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
As you go to use a proto file and you import a package like this into MeshSync, I'm curious about how protos work in general. That if you clearly you can come in after the fact, have another version of this, and add on additional enums.
Right.
But if you needed to go back in time, and what I'm trying to ask is, when this is imported, is it the numeric 4 that is referenced in a package like MeshSync, or is it the string text linkerd that's matched?
So when you generate the Go code from the proto file, there'll be a lot of helper functions. So you will get the enum. So yeah, if you look at pb.go, you get the constant, you get the map that maps from ID to name, or the number to name, and name to name to number. So there's a lot of things, but the idea is going to be to import the pb.go file. So it's up to the maintainer of mesh. What was this? Is this yeah, this repo, to keep it up to date. And it's MeshSync's job is to just import that pb.go file and use it as is. So if anything new is added, it's you do nothing initially, and when you start adding support for it in MeshSync, you basically handle that mesh as well based on the type.
And for new type, I can see how, kind of like a database and changing the schema of a database, that adding new columns is never, or is generally isn't a breaking change. But when you, I guess but when you delete a column, that can potentially mess up the.
You're not allowed to, and like if you look at the protobuf guidelines, you're supposed to deprecate something, but you can't delete in the middle. So that way you don't break anyone or anyone using this course, this object.
Cool. And I think that in part answers my question of, like, that was kind of what I was trying to get to, is like, hey, if you wanted to order these in alphabetical order later, and you went to rearrange the mapping, it seems like best practice for a client like MeshSync, as it's importing this package, that you would, as you're coding up MeshSync, that you would refer to things by string.
Yeah.
Which
yeah, that's right. You're probably right. That's what we want to do.
Okay. Okay, but yeah, sort of either way, if you go retroactively go back and change the spelling or change the numeric value assigned, it's bad practice. And okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Well, Tinkai, maybe we'll toss up an issue and see if
Yeah.
you, Tinkai, there are more service meshes coming soon, so we'll we'll have more to add. Should be good.
Okay.
All right. I'm feeling somewhat good about this week in terms of maybe doing the thing that I need to do to assist with some of the use cases and some of to be able to have some of those discussions so that tiered discovery and other things make sense. Nitish, anything else that we want to?
No, I think this is good. I will try to work on this again on the weekend. That's the only time I get because there's there's so many things to balance right now.
Sure.
Uh, but yeah, I want to do the architecture diagram or a sequence diagram because that'll be an easier way of designing and redesigning things, and people can come in and we can spec it out before we start adding more code or removing code.
Yeah.
So let me try that on the weekend. Uh, there's still more ideas that I got after talking today about eventing on how we want to do that. Uh, pipelines could be forever processes also. So maybe some of my design is wrong instead of a ticker. The ticker could be fine for a health probe because you'll periodically check if the control plane is still there. But the every fingerprint process that you start should become its own coroutine and keep running. Uh, Again, periodically or based on events. So, like the reason that came up is because we need one fingerprinter to watch the custom resources. So it'll basically need to periodically ask API server that do we have any new virtual services? Do we have any new destination rules? And as it gets that information, it's gonna populate the info object and send an event out that a virtual service was added, and whoever wants to consume it could consume that event and do whatever it needs to do with it.
Are you able to subscribe to Cube API for any new instances of a custom resource?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, nice.
it's mostly through the client Go that they provide for different things. But yeah, you can, like Adif was saying, you can use an untyped client as well, a dynamic client. You just give it the group version kind, and it can watch it for you.
Okay. Which sounds nice. Like, for to the extent that we're able to, that beyond initial discovery or beyond a human wanting to do a manual invocation of a check, that the majority of the time that we would be, or the MeshSync would be, it itself would be being driven through events from Kubernetes.
Yeah, another use case of this eventing model that like we broadcast events is going to be the visual topology could get events. The UI, the front end would get events from there, uh, where it tells you that a new virtual service was added. So it would be dynamic in nature, that a new service was added or a new control plane was added. So that's why I want to keep that eventing model, and needs a little more thought. And it doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be in process eventing. Uh, Eventually, it could be a broker, message broker, or NATs, or something else that we could use. Kafka, and I know we discussed Kafka and it's too heavy. It's probably going to be NATs, and whatever other microservices want to subscribe to it can do that. Uh, yeah, it's organically going to grow. It's gonna break. It's gonna be restructured, rebuilt. But that's the fun of it. It's not. It's still up in the air. Like we still don't know exactly what MeshSync does. We have a basic idea of what we want to do, but there's going to be like actually, yeah,
Yeah,
actually building it out and materializing it is where the challenge is.
just realizing that the mesh adapters themselves, that there's a possible future in which they are speaking NATs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, that would be ideal then. Uh, I don't know. Does the UI talk to a Node.js backend?
Kush, are you still on? I don't believe that it
Yep.
does. Yeah, go ahead, Kush.
Can you pardon?
What's the backend that we run right now for the UI piece in Mesh.io? Is there an Express or Node.js app?
It's React. It's
It's React.
Next.js.
So React has both backend and front end.
Yep. So the server is maintained by Next.js. Next.js is a framework written on top of React.
Oh, okay, okay, got it. So yeah, I mean, the backend gets an event. It probably keeps a WebSocket open, or however the dynamic thing works with the front end. Uh, yeah, it should be pretty cool. I mean, obviously it's periodic because Istio is not giving us too many events. Discovering virtual services or objects is going to be event driven, so it's not really a poll model. But they're like looking at the image or something else, like istio.ctl version is a periodic thing. If we want to get some information from the sidecars, the proxies, that's going to be a periodic thing because the proxy is not going to send an event saying that, hey, this is the callback when something happens. So certain things are event driven, certain things are polled. So event driven ones are dynamically sent over NATs to our front end, back end front end. And the other things are polled and sent to NATs. But I think it can be pretty good, the model. And then you can just, this would be the hub, and then you can build out the spokes.
I see. Yeah. See, Kush, that's why the operator has that MeshSync logo as his heart, because that's the hub. Nice. Good. This is fantastic. Tinkai, there's an issue coming your way about this proto, I guess.
Okay.
Well, good. Gentlemen, same time next week, maybe with some actual things on paper and some other preparation.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Back to the job that pays me money. So
Back to the grind, yeah.
Mhm.
Good to see you guys.
all right, okay.
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 Bye, guys.
Bye.
If you can send me the cheat sheet, that'll be great.
Yep. Oh, thanks for the reminder. Yeah, I will.
Thanks.
Okay.